Okay, Rabotai, Parashat
Matot Masei.
Matot Masei. It is a fascinating parasha. It really has to do a lot with what we are doing during this 3 weeks. And overall can really shed a lot of light. Come see here. Shed a lot of light about how to and how not to do things and where sometimes the source of our problems. In this parasha, there is a somewhat of a weird interaction between Moshe Rabbeinu and the two tribes of who are they?
Gad and Reuven.
Gad, Reuven, and half of the tribe of Menashe. So they're coming to him. They're coming to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they said to him the following: "Vayigshu elav," and they approached him. "Vayomru gidrot son nivne lemiknenu po ve'arim letapenu." We're going to build corrals for our sheep and cattle, and we're going to build a city here for our children. Ve'anachnu nichalez chushim lifnei bnei Israel, and we going to be the spearhead leading the war in conquering the land. Ad asher im heviunam el mekomam, until everybody going to settle down in his place. Ve'ishev tapenu be'arei ha'mivtzar b'pnei yoshev haaretz, and our children would sit in fortified city because of the inhabitants of the land. Ve'lo nashuv el batenu ad itnachel bnei Yisrael ish nachal haTorah, and we are not going to settle down until the last of the tribes of Israel. Here, Oren, please, Kohen. So we're not going to settle down until the last one of Eretz Israel, the last Jew, is sitting down in his home and family estate. Ki lo nilchol itam me'ever layarden ve'ala. However, and by the way, you see, from the Bible, tell this to Rashida Taliba, whatever. I guess she, whatever, cry baby. Actually, it's not a baby. But tell her that, the Jews settled down from the river. Not the Arabs. Do you know why, by the way? Because there were no Arabs back then. Needless to say, no Palestinians. The Jews settled down from the river. I'm going to point something else out to you. The term West Bank was made to guarantee the Jews would not have a land, because that land, when the British and French took over the Ottoman Empire, was called Transjordan. However, the British, which were now known for their great love for the Jews, they figured if we're going to call it Transjordan, means the whole area belongs to the Jews, so they call it the West Bank. That's how it came about, just to let you know. Next time you meet Taliba and Rashiba over there, you can have something to tell her, because she probably doesn't know that. And why? Because this is our territory, and at the end, after we're going to go to our inheritance on the east bank of the Jordan River. And then Moshe says to them something very weird. He says, "Vayomer elehem Moshe." And Moshe said, "Im ta'asu et hadavar hazeh, if you're going to do so, tichalzu lifnei Hashem lemilchama. You're going to be lead the spearhead. You're going to be the front of the troops making a war in front of Hashem. ועבר לכם כל חלוץ את הירדן לפני השם בראשו, and so on and so forth, ונכבשה הארץ לפני השם." He puts Hashem all the time. Moshe Rabbeinu puts God's name all the time. You making war for Hashem? You conquering the war for Hashem? Conquering the land? What is it? What is Moshe saying here? ואם לא תעשו כן, and if you're not going to do so, חטאתם להשם, you're doing a great sin to God. ודעו חטאתכם אשר תמצא אתכם, and at the end, your sin is going to find you. In other words, you're going to pay for your sins. בנו לכם ערים לטפכם, build the cities and so on and so forth, and so on, and as you see, והיוצא מפכם, and whatever comes out of your mouth, you should do. Hello, friend. ויאמר בני גד ובני ראובן, they said it together in unison, עבדיך יעשו כאשר אדוני מצווה. As you would command, that's what we should do. לפני השם למלחמה כאשר אדוני דובר, and so on and so forth. And then he sent Elazar and Yehoshua, and he tells them the whole thing. Those opening words of Moshe and his response to Bnei Gad or Bnei Reuven looks a little clumsy. He repeats things over and over and over again. אם תעשו את הדבר הזה, אם תחלצו לפני השם למלחמה. Why are you saying this? I mean, you already said it. How many times are you going to say the same thing in different ways? When it says הדבר הזה, that means that thing. It means that you're going to go to war. So why are you repeating things so many times? More than that, if this was the response of Moshe for theirs to the offer of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, ואנחנו נחלץ חושים, we lead the troops in front of the rest of Am Israel, right? Which is a complete acceptance, what it seems on the surface. Why does it need all the extra words that Moshe is telling them? They already said they're going to do it. Why? And why not altogether immediately call Yehoshua and call Elazar Kohen and the head of the army, all the generals, right? And ask them to tell them, okay, that's what they said, that's what it's going to be. Why you have to repeat it? Why you have to repeat it so many times? Why you have to break it into details and again over and over and over again? That question, by the way, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh asked the question. And Orach Chaim asked Rabbi, what was his name, by the way?
Chaim
ben Attar. He says the following, but before we're going to look at what he said, we should look at the words of the Rambam, which the Rambam is actually, hey guys, you want to join us over there? Which the Rambam is actually, serves as the basis for the words of Rabbi Chaim ben Attar. And so says the Rambam in Halachot Melachim Perek,
Yudaf,
Zayin, Halacha, Tetvav. It says, ומאחר שייכנס בקשרי המלחמה, once you're going into issues of war, you're going into war, יישען על מקווה ישראל ומושיעהו בעת צרה. You have to lean on God. In other words, what the Rambam is saying here, hey, listen, even if you learn in Yeshiva, you can go to war. However, when you go to war, don't forget who to rely on, who is really your savior. God. וידע, and you should know, שעל ייחוד השם הוא עושה מלחמה. The only reason why you're doing so is when somebody threatens the existence of Am Yisrael, and this is not about Am Yisrael. It's about the promise that God made Am Yisrael, and you need to go and fight for it. I guess they don't have this printed in Israel in the editions of the Rambam over there. I don't know what to tell you. Says the Rambam, "V'yafsim nafsho bekapo." Says, go on all that war. V'lo yere v'lo yafached. Don't be afraid. Don't be frightened. Don't be intimidated. Go. As one person once said, very, very nice, I expect nothing, I fear nothing, therefore I'm a free man. Once you are afraid, now you're not free anymore. Fear will tie you down. And one of the things that Israel lost is the implementing of fear into their enemies that want to kill them. Why? Because Israel put their trust too much on other countries rather than trust God. And when other countries tell Israel, okay, so you just got shot with 3,000 rockets, restrain yourself, restrain. Yes, we understand that you have a right to defend yourself, but restrain. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Fight them with spitballs? What am I supposed to do? Restrain, restrain. That's what happens. Don't be afraid. If you are fighting a just war, if somebody's threatening you. We go to war only because somebody threatens us. We don't go to war to expand. And Jews and Israelis never went to war to expand. They never went to war to kill. They went to war to defend themselves. However, the world doesn't understand that. The problem is, we don't explain it, we don't say it out loud. We always become apologetic. And that's what happens. Says the Rambam, V'chol ha'nilcham b'chol libo belo pachad. He who fights without fear in his heart, with all your heart, without fear, v'tiyeh kavanato lekadesh et Hashem bilvad, and your whole reason why you're going to war is to sanctify God's name. It doesn't mean you're going to kill God now. Kill in the name of God and expect 72 virgins. We don't do that. There is a covenant between God and Am Israel, and those who want to kill the Jews want to break the covenant. It's our job to go to war to protect it, to show to ourselves that it's important to us, and to fight for the sake of God, for that covenant. Now I want to see you argue that point in terms of why guys should go to yeshiva. Mr. Going to Israel for yeshiva for a year. You should join the IDF. It'll be a very good thing for you. Instead of putting some kind of a marine shirt that you don't deserve, you should really put yourself in Israeli clothing, military clothing. Join the IDF. Join the IDF. And if by joining the IDF you'll become non-observant, I can tell you, you probably were not observant all this time altogether. How's that for a statement? As I can tell you, I don't make nice, I just tell the truth. If you want, your brother will do therapy afterwards. Now, free, nothing is free. Now, muftachlo, if you do so, muftachlo, you guaranteed shelo yimtza nezek velo tagia ora. Nothing bad will happen to you. V'yivne lo bayit nachon b'Yisrael, and you're going to be settled down in the land. V'yizkeh lo levanav ad olam v'yizkeh lechaya olam haba. In other words, you're going to be able to settle down in your country, in your land, without needing to worry about it. The key here is not the fear, not the first part of the statement of the Rambam. The key here is for the sake of God. We need to make God a part of this equation. When we don't, that's a problem. If we involve politics in our military offenses, that's not good. We need to understand why we're fighting for it. We should not be apologetic about it. And the intent of the warriors, of the fighters, in the word should be, as the Rambam says, lekadesh et Hashem bilvad, to sanctify God's name. And not because of any profit or politics or any benefit they're going to get. Only then, nothing will happen. And from that, Moshe was concerned. That was Moshe's biggest concern. And that's what he was referring to when he was talking to Bnei Gad, Reuven, and Menashe. That's why he puts Hashem all the time. V'nilchamtem lifnei Hashem. And shmartem, and everything is Hashem. In every sentence that he puts in, he puts God's name in it. That was his concern. Now, the Orach Chaim says, Achen kavanat ma'amar Moshe, the intention of Moshe, since he saw that the mind of Bnei Gad and Reuven, they wanted to pass into Israel, into the land of Israel, also known today as Judea and Samaria. By the way, I never seen in the map it's called Palestine or I don't know, Arabia or something. Arabia is in Saudi Arabia. It's called Judea and Samaria. Notice how everybody is so full of it they would not dare to use this name anymore, Judea and Samaria. So when somebody says the West Bank said Judea and Samaria, I mean the land that we stole from us. Not for nothing, Native Americans cannot vote in America. But you should know that Arab citizens in Israel do vote. So I don't know what they're complaining about Israel. Excuse me?
They're in the Knesset.
They're in the Knesset?
They say Allahu Akbar in the Knesset.
Allahu snack bar, yes, you're right. They say Allahu snack bar in the Knesset. Now, If you're going to go for any other purpose, this is not something right, and you're not probably going to succeed in the war. Why? Because the Bnei HaMilchama tzrichim shetiyeh milchamtam lenakem me'ovei Hashem. You have to go against those who are enemies of Hashem. Wanting to kill a Jew, automatically you make yourself your enemy of God. You want to eliminate, not the Jews, you want to eliminate the covenant of God with the Jews by eliminating the Jews in a way to actually eliminate God from the picture. We have to fight for it. And we need to remember it. And when you do so, that's milchemet chovat mitzvat Hashem. That's milchemet chova, and that's milchemet reshut. They're two different things. Al ken האנשים ההמה, כיוון שאין הולכים אלא להתקיים בידם הארץ, יש מחוש בחליצתם שלא תועיל. The Or HaChaim says, since they say, we're going to go to fight for you, but we are not going to settle down in Israel, we're going to settle down in the other side, Or HaChaim points out, based on what the Rambam says, since the intent is not to settle down in the land, there is a great concern that they're going to cause harm for the Jews because they are going to war not for the right intent, not for the sake of God. They're going to fight for a different reason. Now you understand why Moshe keeps saying all the time, God, 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 whatever. Every pasuk he says he puts God inside. What's the matter? Any questions over there? So we need to make sure, again, to us, what does it have to do with us? That we need to make sure that everybody that is in the army knows where they're going. Now, the war that there's to go is Milchemet Hashem. The problem is today that nobody wants to do so. The religious people in Israel don't want to go to war because they don't want to serve in the army. The secular people don't want to have God to do with anything, and that's why we look the way they look. Moshe saw that, and that's what the Or HaChaim says, the only reason why they want to go to war is so they could give an excuse and not to settle down in the land. So he says it's not a right thing. Not only that it's not a proper intent, but as we said before, it actually might harm the Jews in their effort to have the land to themselves. And that's what Moshe explains. That's what the Rambam explains, and that's what the Or HaChaim says. Asher al ken nitchakem Moshe. That's why Moshe was using, some kind of a wise trick on them, and he says to them, "Im ta'asu, im techatzu." If you will do so, and if this, and if that, in other words, to correspond against what they said, he says, "Ve'anachnu nilech," and we will go. And he says, if you will go. And the word, "Ve'im ta'asu tadavar hazeh," this goes back to what we said, previously. Keneged ma shekavanatam lekayem hatnai. They had a condition, right? This what you're saying, you have to go. It says, and if you go for a war, who? Lifnei Hashem, in front of Hashem. And the dikduk, the correction here, or the emphasis is on the word Lifnei Hashem. That it only for the sake of Hashem you're going to go. Not so you can go back and you get a waiver by being in the spear, leading the spearhead, so you can go and settle down over there. Not because of that. That's why you need to do Lifnei Hashem. And that's why Moshe knew exactly what he was saying. In other words, we might get very much so, oh, you want to go ahead? You want to be the leading, you want to be the commander? You want to lay on the barbed wire for us? Great! Good for you! You got to look at the whole entire picture. Look at the lesson that Moshe tells us here. Don't fall just behind words. You need to understand that there are other things here involved. There is an intent and there is damage that could be done because of your intent. And we'll get to this also later on. Hopefully. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, and we should not, and it says, Ado Rishoy Tovav, in other words, Oivav of who? The enemies of who? The enemies of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Enemy of the Jews is enemy of God. Again, not because of the Jews, but rather because of God. Because ultimately, it's all about God. I've never seen yet a religious liberal, a truly religious liberal. Do you know why? Because it doesn't go hand in hand. Does not go hand in hand. The Jews are a sore thumb. They're like a pain in the neck of all those people who want to remove God out of the picture. So there's something special about Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven and Chatzi Shevet HaMenashe. There's something very special there. I really talks about it. But we need to look at things, and we've been dealing with these things for a few weeks already, about those people who are, always complaining, or people who creates problems among us, even though we think they're great people, and so on and so forth. So in this case, anybody that does something like that, not for the sake of Hashem, for any personal profit, will harm all of us. But how is this that is going to harm us? We need to understand. Mankind is a social creature. Social creature. And being a social creature, we are very sensitive, and yet being very, we could be easily influenced by our society or people around it. We are influenced by campaigns. We are influenced from those who are agenda pushers, those who have, forming public opinions, from people who do advertisements and commercials. They influence us. And that is a very great danger to our being altogether. And of course, without a doubt, you are influenced from the people close to you, and even more so from a person who is a serial complainer. One of those serial complainers, you'll see something about them. They are very passionate about the way they explain their complaints. Why is it that it's that there's how bad society is, and that's why being a negative person is not so good. A person that always sends you bad things on WhatsApp or whatever it is, call them to order. So listen, stop. I want only good things. Talking about which, he didn't show up today. So, but you got to tell them, stop. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear these things. Bad all the time. And they would find everything that is bad in society. They can't even find something that is good. The problem with this, it has effect on me as well. I cannot help you change the way you look at things. That's already depends on two things. On your willingness to change, and on how good your therapist is. People who are negative by core, who for them everybody is bad, everything is bad, there is no hope, the sky is falling, there's some kind of a personality disorder there that needs to be classified by a professional. For whatever reason, they always tend to be also somewhat narcissists. Very fascinating, So, I could have gone to learn psychology, can I? So, with this great passion, we get all infected. Mamash kacha. It's like an infection, spread an infection. A COVID, a spiritual COVID. So the words of Moshe to Bnei Gad and Reuven are not, he is not agreeing to their offer. Right? Like today, if Israel does not agree to the offer of the Hamas, whose fault is that? Israel's fault. People don't understand. We're negotiating. One thing, we should not negotiate with terrorists. Either bring us all the captives back, or we're going to turn you back to the Stone Age. That's the only thing that could happen. That's the only way the captives would have come back. but we have to restrain. Moshe does not agree with them. Moshe is not here to play nice. He doesn't play nice. He tells you what he wants you to do. We are not negotiating here. You are not here to set terms about what is already determined by God that needs to happen. And I'm not happy with the fact that what you're doing is a problem. You tell me what's a problem? There's a huge problem here. So Moshe is very careful. He kind of gives it to them because he tries to protect Am Yisrael. What he's basically saying to them is, you need to make your offer better. This is what you try to do. You need to make it better. And their original offer was, we're going to go in front of the people. And the response of Moshe was, if you're going to do that, in other words, you're going to do the first. And not only it's what's important here, it's not only the maaseh, as we said before, but also the kavanah, the intent. The intent is so important. The intent is so important. Why the intent is important? That's why he says, Im techaltzu lifnei Hashem lamilchama. Not chalutzim in front of the people. You're not going to go be the leading if you're going to do so for the sake of Hashem. And only then you could do so. Why? Because Moshe says the good deed that you're going to do, and by the way, you should know all bad ideas started as good ideas and good intent, and somehow they end to be terrible. You might want to do the right thing, but if your intent is bad, and that's what usually politicians do, it's going to end up to be bad. Not only if your intent was bad, if your idea was a good idea, but the intent was not good, it will be bad. And good, it has to be, first of all, truthful. So the message the Parashat gives us here, in other words, what Moshe is telling you, I don't agree with you. I'm not agreeing with what you're doing. You need to change your attitude. And again, why is it so bad? The message is basically, which is the core of what I see here as the issue, stay away from poisonous people. Stay away from poisonous people. And we need to remove, first of all, as a first stage, we need to remove the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites. By the way, Palestinians are not Canaanites. Just to let you know in case you were wondering. No. Why? Because the Canaanites were the most immoral people in the world. You cannot have them around you because at the end you're going to be influenced by them. So the first stage in you settling down in the land, why? Because the Torah says, "Lo tichod brit leyoshev haaretz pen yeh lecha lemokesh." Do not sign treaties with them because that's going to be your fifth column. That's going to be your downfall. What do you think? What do you guys think about Anwar Sadat, the murdered Egyptian president? I think Anwar Sadat was a wicked man. He knew exactly he'll be probably a Gilgul of Bilam. What did Anwar Sadat do? Well, last time I checked, Gaza was a part of Egypt. I mean, apropos that, all Gazians used to have Egyptian passports, unless you didn't know. And the West Bank, what you call the West Bank for lack of better terms that you might understand, was a part of Jordan. Why did Anwar Sadat insisted on the peace treaty of Israel and Egypt that they're going to be an autonomy in the West Bank? What do you care? What's your business? Because he knew exactly, just like Bilam knew, what God does not like. Anwar Sadat knew that if you're going to sign a treaty on parts of Israel, you lost the game before it started. You don't believe me? Well, look at Oslo 1, 2, 3, and 4. What amazes me is that there were many religious leaders that were for Oslo 1. As far as I'm concerned, and I'm nothing to worry about, as far as I'm concerned, I was done with them at that point, whoever those leaders were. I was done with them. I don't care what's the reason. I don't care what's the reason. You don't give the land back that was yours, because when you do so, it means you don't want it. And if you don't want that, why should you hold to anything else? I want everything then. If you give me a room in your house and you allow me to squat in a room in your house, before you know, I'm going to squat in your whole entire house and you're going to be out. I think that squatters should not have any rights. You don't own the building, it's not yours, get out. Allowing squatters in buildings is basically no other than the government allows people to violate the law. As much as, imagine, the government will be selling dope on the streets. Yeah, I know they don't say dope anymore, but I'm an old guy, what can I tell you? Moshe Rabbeinu understands that, and that's why we need to push the people, those pagans, out. Those idol worshippers. They were cruel people. They were murderers of children for the sake of rituals. They would throw their children in fire, which caused the molach. Taking kids and throw them in fire. Just like happened in October 7, Rashida Taliba and OCA, or whatever her name is, Mortez, whatever her name is. When they put Jewish kids inside ovens and burned them alive. In case you forgot. Conveniently. Those people were so corrupt. Just like those guys who blew up over there in Tehran. They cry wolves, oh my poor people, they're starving. When you're sitting down on billions of dollars. Those people could have lived in Eretz Israel. They could have lived in the land of Israel. In a condition that they're going to receive and accept upon themselves those cultural values and spiritual values that Moshe and Judaism talks about. Then it's called Ger Toshav. Then you're allowed to. When you're going to change your way. Otherwise we can't have you around us. Do you know why? Because then you don't have a society. If you have people that don't accept your morals, I tell this to all those morons who let all these, terror supporters in Times Square yesterday. When you allow people in your country that don't share the same values and virtues that your society does, your society is doomed and it's falling apart. It's falling apart. I'm not quite sure the United States is 5 years removed from what is going on in France. Don't fall asleep on the job, guys. Don't fool yourselves. To have in Times Square a bunch of jihadists demonstrating in support of a terror organization recognized by the United States government without the police doing a thing, that's an abomination of what America is all about. I thought you need some license to demonstrate in the streets and to cause such havoc. But I guess you don't. America is going to continue like this. You can flush down the toilet. It's done. The Torah knew it. Moshe Rabbeinu knew it. We got to be careful. And there is a great message here. Look, Am Yisrael is a nation that saw great miracles. Saw the Yam Suf split in half, the Nile turned into blood, the well of Miriam following them in the desert. But we have to understand the human character is very sensitive. We're very sensitive. Man is very weak. And it's very important to address your weaknesses. You need to come to terms with your weaknesses. If you keep on denying your weaknesses, you're going to pay a price. Right? And therefore, it's important not to be exposed to this culture that might create a catastrophe on our culture from within. From within. And that fear of cultural influence existed and still exists today. But that's not just exist because of your telephone. And I'm not trying to persuade anybody to get a kosher phone. All phones were born kosher. What's not kosher is your mind. But that's for another story. The problem is that ideas that are absolutely against the Torah values had penetrated into Judaism and now are labeled as political correctness and so on and so forth, and you can't say this and you have to say that and live and let live and blah 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 blah, the whole entire thing. That scenario happened about 850 years after they entered the land, when they established the kingdom in Israel. The Jewish nation became filthy with idol worshipping, and as a result of that, the first state of Israel was destroyed, and Bet HaMikdash destroyed together with it, exactly during the time that we are at right now, Ben HaMetzarim. Not for nothing, all of a sudden there's a great fear in Israel for what's going to happen, most likely on Friday or Saturday, most likely like in the middle of the night, to make the Jews miserable. Look at what I'm telling you. It's very also to remember that in our personal life, whether it's a workplace, family, and so on and so forth, poison and messages that are negative would infiltrate and penetrate deeper than you actually are aware of. And the way to deal with it is really to create an internal integrity. One way to create internal integrity is to know what are you living for. What are your values? To sit down with yourself, to know what you want, to know, first of all, before you, to know who you are. What are you here for? There's no excuse not to learn. As somebody says, any excuse not to learn is just an excuse. Whether there's no parking, or there's no food, or the composition of the people is not like you, everything is an excuse. At the end of the day, it's only an excuse. Whether you're dating or whether you're figging. Or going to Israel, to that matter. At the end of the day, it's just an excuse. And you don't want to look nice on the outside, to be like a China doll, which is nice on the outside, but when a little bit of pressure comes, you crumble within. You need to be rough and tough and strong on the inside. But sometimes, really the best thing to do is just to put, as they say, to put some daylight between us. Stay away from people like this. To put some distance between us. A society that succeeds is a society that has a lot of opinions in it. Many opinions, many views. But however, that society needs to also have a form of unity inside of it, which is a core unity of virtues and values. We need to respect all opinions of all members of society, but we must have something that unifies us. The problem of the land of Israel, the state of Israel, they tried to unify Israel against the concept of the army or the state, rather than we already had something which is the Torah and the Jewish identity. But we can always fix that. But without that, in one hand, the respect for opinions and the agreement that we all unify around certain virtues and values, without that, the society falls apart, does not function. In America, it does not happen anymore. Today in America, it's bad to be an American. You need to be anti-something to be a good American today, which is terrible. That's why I'm concerned about the well-being of this country. I really am. That unity allows you to grow. And this is like to receive, let's put it this way, good influence in your social DNA. And the other aspect of that is really to to deal with our failures and to really know how to deal with other opinion and situation. And by dealing with the failures, it's not just saying how bad we are, but it's okay, we made a mistake, something happened, something bad happened, and let's see how we can fix it and how to make things work together. Don't just go in and close road and says, we'll die, we're not going to go to the army. You're not going, for crying out loud, to the Russian army in the time of the Tsars or the Soviets. These are your people. There is a problem? Okay, we need to figure it out. It doesn't make a difference. Maybe we should get all these people that sit down in Israel and make decisions. We should all give them a wrench as a gift and write every problem. It doesn't matter how broken it is, could be fixed. And I do believe that it's probably because it's kids that never played with tasks, as we said, problem solving and building, so they never learned that something could be fixed and be built. And that's the beauty of being a kid. You build something with Lego or with some box, and then it falls apart, then you build it again. But if you don't play with it, that's the problem. You become a dingbat, a loser, and then you destroy the society. We need to learn how to do so. Let's sit down, let's do some debriefing about what didn't work out, and let's try to make it work, because we need to make it work. There's no other way. It needs to work, and we need to make it work, and let's see how we do it. But not my way or the highway. It's our way, because we're all in this together as people. We are all in this together. We need to understand that. We need to understand that. According to this, our tradition, Parashat Matot and the two parashiot after that, Matot, Masai, and Dvarim, usually happen during this time now of the 3 weeks and the nine days. According to our traditions, all the signs of mournings of Minhagei Avlut were we take place. However, we know that we have to be in a great, as they say, mitzvah gedoyla, to be besimcha, right? We need to be in simcha. It's a great mitzvah to be besimcha all the time. So how could I do this and this together? And we could understand this according to Kabbalah. Between those 3 days, those 3 weeks, are really loaded with tremendous energy. There's great power during this time, and we spoke about it a few weeks ago. So, because of that, you need to be careful. Because of that, we need to be careful. We need to be careful because the issues of avlut, the signs of mourning that we are taking, not listening to music, not getting haircuts, not eating meat, not doing all kind of shechianus and stuff like this and so on and so forth, is not just, or mainly not, according to Kabbalah, of tsar ve'yagon, of agony and pain and sorrow. But even more so, is to cause us more, which I told you this for years already, to really withdraw ourselves to within, inside, to prevent ourselves from coming to situations that we could really harm ourselves. This is why we need to be careful. That's why a lot of people during this time don't go to the ocean. And I don't know if you know, it's interesting. Every year, I've been watching this every single day. Every single day, 2 or 3 people drown in Israel. It's crazy. And it gets very hot, and people drown. People don't go to swim during this time. So, many times we forget that we are the owners of our own body and our own soul as well. And it is our privilege to either keep or dismiss any kind of feeling that serves or does not serve our purpose, our goal to be here. But we don't want to hear that we are masters of our own destiny. However, if there is something that is not serving us, does not serve our purpose, and could harm us, right, we need to push it away, and we should remember all the time that we have, mamash be'emunah ve'yediyah, we need to believe and we need to know that we have the ability to tilt our destiny to the right place. Otherwise, as I told you many times, the greatest curse in the Torah is Bnei Bniyal. Ben Bniyal is a useless person. We become useless. We can't reach our goal. We can't reach our purpose. The Ari says that if you want to know what was the problem with Bnei Gad, Reuven, and Menashe, Look at the time of conception when those people conceived, what brought their conception of Gad, Reuven, and Menashe. The forefathers, the tribes, the head of the tribes. And the Ari points out that something went wrong into that. I don't know, it's 9 o'clock, we're going to finish soon. Something went wrong, and that linger generations down the road. So therefore, we need to be very careful of anything that we need to do, especially when it's loaded. There are moments and events in our lives that are loaded, that are very easy for us to lose control. When a person is with his wife, can lose control. When a person is eating, he loses control. When a person doing things, anything they can lose control, you got to be careful. The problem with those tribes that didn't want to be with the rest of Israel goes from the part of whatever happened according to the Ari back then, when we were just conceived. The parasha also deals with the word of the Midianim, and the Midianim symbolizes to us all the dinim in which we created, the harsh judgment in which we created in the past, those negative forces that might come and hunt us again, just like happened to Shevet Reuven and so on and so forth. And this month of Tammuz and the month of Av that we are right about, we could really harm ourselves by being too overly critical. We could become too critical of ourselves and too critical of others. That's why comes the war of the Midianim in Parashat Balak, Parashat Pinchas, and Parashat Matot. This is the time to fight those forces. How do you fight those forces? Patience and compassion. Patience and compassion. So you need not to rush. Don't drive fast. That's why a person's not supposed to hit his children. I don't believe a person should hit his children to begin with, period. But especially this time, watch how it comes out of your mouth. Don't curse anyone unless you want the curse to stick. But don't forget, whatever you throw at somebody else comes back at you. So take it easy on the cursing. We need to create openness and willingness to accept. And we must create ahavat chinam. Love everyone because he is a creation of God. Love every Jew. It doesn't make a difference what kind of a kippah he wears, whether it's a velvet kippah with a rim, and you will see it when you go there, a velvet kippah without a rim, a srugi kippah, a folded kippah, or no kippah. A Jew for you is a Jew. And that's how we're going to bring things back. This is how we're going to fix those dinim. We're going to fix the lack of patience towards one another, the hatred that we have to one another. If you don't understand what the hatred is, go and see what demonstration they have in Israel against the government in a wartime, sponsored by foreign objects. But you see, again, coming back to this is how it is. And all this led us to destructions and disasters through thousands of years, and they all happened during this time. This is our time to fix. So next time you tell me, or you're about to tell me, about the fact that you cannot take it, that you cannot listen to music, or you cannot do this, or you cannot do that, I'm going to remind you that you are part of the problem. So in that matter, guys, boys and girls, you should have a Shabbat Shalom. We should have a Chodesh Tov that's coming up, Be'ezrat Hashem, soon. And Be'ezrat Hashem, נראה בביאת משיח צדקנו במהרה בימינו. Amen.